Greetings, travelers of the fire. Tonight our tale walks a shadowed path. A moon of sickness, harsh judgments, and bitter harvests. We journey back to the ancient times across the great eastern waters. Forget the painted legends of shining warriors and stone lodges the merchants of vision sold you. The truth is, your spirit would likely leave your body before a single sun had set. So, before you settle on your sleeping mats, leave a token of favor and join our tribe, but only if my words bring truth to your heart. And speak your origins to the wind below, telling me which lands you hail from and where the sun sits in your sky. It brings joy to the elders to see so many far-flung spirits gathering at our common fire. Now let the fire burn low, and let the wind sing softly through your lodge. And let our spirits walk this night's trail as one. Awaken, traveler, for the winter of 1325 has called your name. The good word is this: breath still fills your lungs. The dark word: the biting insects are also awake and hungry. Your resting place is withered grass woven with crawling things, carrying the scent of beast enclosures, for it was stolen from the beast but 3 moons past. There are no soft furs, no feathers for your head, and truly no woven linens of the desert kings. Only a thick sheep's pelt that has not seen the river since the last deep snows, now heavy as a young bison from the dirt of many nights. You flutter your eyes open as the iron voice of the stone temple strikes the distant air. It is the dawn caller of these ancient ones, roaring with a spirit lacking all gentleness. Your lodge is built of raw timber, a single space blind to the sun, where your blood kin, your horned beasts, and the creeping earth dwellers breathe the exact same air. The scent of it, it is a heavy wind of many odors. A weaving of soured grain water, the sweat of toiling men, the musk of horned ones, and a rot you beg the Great Spirit to spare you from, though your gut knows the truth. Sweet burning fats have not yet been gifted to this tribe, and even had they been, the cold earth beneath your feet would swallow their flames. You reach your arms to the sky, but sorrow follows quickly, for the winter air bites, and your bones ache like fallen branches. You have seen but 22 summers, yet in these harsh lands, you walk already in the twilight of your youth. Your back groans like a wind-torn pine, and your knees crackle like river stones rattling in the hands of a lost gatherer. To rise from your nest is to throw bones to fate. The earth is either drowned from the night's weeping sky that pierced your woven roof, or hardened by the foul droppings of a neighbor's fowl. By either path, your naked solas are now claimed by the filth of the earth. Oh, and hiding your face? What is such a thing? Your whole clan, and perhaps a wandering blood brother who never journeyed onward, are rising from the dust beside you. There is no separate lodge, no hide to hang, no moments for a solitary spirit, only the shared breath of the many. Welcome to the sun rising in this ancient eastern land, where you are never without shadows. For blood drinkers, scurrying field mice, and 8 kinfolk are bound to your side. And this is merely the opening of your daily hunt. It only grows steeper and darker from this step dot, so you have dragged your form from the cursed nest of dried grass. It is a victory. Now the body's waters demand release, and the spirit of nature does not ask with soft words. It cries out like a wounded hawk. Here's the turn in the path where you long for the washing rooms of tomorrow. There's no porcelain basin, no resting wood, no soft leaves for cleaning, no rushing water, not even a sullen spirit's tool to clear the blockages. In these ancient moons, emptying your belly is a perilous hunt, a test of the tribe, and often a gathering seen by many eyes. If you are of the earth tenders, your dumping ground is a wooden vessel behind the lodge, already overflowing because the elder wolf stand battled evil spirits after chewing spoiled roots. The stench rivals the great legends of destruction. You trap the air in your chest, release your burdens, and then comes the trickster's game. Cast it into the village pathways. Yes, upon the walking trails. You are taught to cry a warning like a
Leave a token of favor. Subscribe to the channel.
falling tree before hurling it from your lodge hole. It is the ancient tongue's way of saying, beware the falling rain. Though, in truth, no warrior's reflexes are swift enough to dodge. The trails of these stone villages are open rivers of filth, a foul stream of men's leavings, animal dung, and dark waters your spirit begs not to see. If the Great Spirit blessed you to dwell where communal waste pits are dug, it is a fine thing. You may rest your shoulders against unknown. Travelers in a wooden shed where hiding one's face is a lie and fresh wind is a trickster's cruel laugh. You may share quiet stories, but you must fight to keep the tainted air from your lungs. Soft cleaning hides are unknown to this tribe. The people cleanse themselves with dry grass, fallen leaves, torn skins, river moss, or if pride fills their heart, a torn piece of sheep's wool. Sometimes they leave the dirt to dry on the vine, which speaks clearly of why the clasping of hands was not yet a favored greeting. And if you dwell in the chief's great stone fortress, surely the sun shines brighter, yes? Perhaps like a half moon? You may own a private dropping hole, a tear in the stone that casts your filth straight into the protective waters below. A cunning strategy, save for the truth that rival tribes know this well. And yes, enemy warriors sometimes crawled upward through the falling tides of waste. A true tale of sneaking in through the shadow passage. So whether you till the soil or command the warriors, this morning ritual breaks the pride of all men. It is freezing as ice, bared to the world, fraught with peril, and forever turns the stomach. One false step on a slick river stone and your nose meets the refuse of the clan. And still, you have not scrubbed the moss from your teeth, but we shall walk that path shortly. You have lived past the morning waters. You have earned a hunter's feast, have you not? Perhaps a morning breaking of fast. Something heated by the fire, sweet to the tongue, healing to the spirit. I sing a song of sorrow. This is the ancient, unforgiving East. No comfort finds its home in these lands. The morning meal, if it earns such a name, is a shadow dance of survival. There are no fine bird eggs layered with riches, no dark bean brews bubbling over the fire, and truly no green fruit mashed upon roasted breads. You crouch low by the embers holding a carved wooden bowl filled with a sludge that mirrors mud scraped from a wanderer's moccasin. Welcome to your daily portion of the unending stew. This stew is a heavy, sluggish broth born of whatever the foragers could tear from the earth. Wild seeds, buried roots, perhaps a handful of earth beans if the spirits smile upon you. It is boiled over the same coals for passing suns, sometimes whole moons, and fresh gatherings are merely thrown upon the ghosts of older meals. It is less a crafted feast and more a never-ending test of the stomach's strength. Beside it rests a chunk of baked grain, so unyielding it could turn away a flying arrow. It is pounded from rough, wild stalks, often thickened with tree dust, crushed oak nuts, or other desperate findings, for pure golden wheat is but a dream for the chieftains. This bread does not walk as your brother. You do not cut it with a blade. You barter with its stony hide just to take a bite. What of the morning waters? You drink no nectar of the sun fruit, nor the milky pressing of sweet oats. You drink the fermented grain water. Yes, the dizzying brew. As soon as the morning star fades. For what reason? Because the river waters are swarming with tiny, unseen serpents and deep rot. So you greet the sun with a thin brew, weak in its fire, but strong in keeping death at bay. The young ones drink it beside you. No heart sings for it, but it grants you a delay from an early journey to the ancestors. Do you hunger for roasted flesh or pressed curds? Let your spirit chase that dream into the clouds. That is meat for the holy days and celebrations of the spirits, and only if the great chief feels the urge to give. Most earth tenders taste no flesh for many turning seasons. As for fresh berries of the vine, only when the earth yields them and they have not yet turned to wine. And put away thoughts of sweet and burning dust unless you wear the crown of feathers. A single pinch of the black fire seed demands more wampum than a moon's hard labor. The white salt tears are hoarded under a lock and key, so you gnaw your sandy loaf, swallow your bitter grain water, and push away the thought of the shadow rat that tasted your bowl
Claim your seat at the fire. Subscribe to the channel now.
in the darkness. The morning meal does not fill you with the bear's strength. It is merely a weather you must pass through. And now that your belly is suitably hollow, you must toil as if your very spirit relies upon it, because the truth is, it surely does not so. You have choked down your mournful feast, and now you must don your skins, though it will offer a little shield. Your gathered garments equal a single set of skins, a solitary one. It is a coarse woven shirt of sheep's hair or plant fibers that has clung to your back for countless moons, perhaps many winters. The tribe knows no changing of colors for the seasons. There is only the rule to wear this hide until it falls to dust or brings an angry rash upon your flesh. Beneath garments are a choice few can make. If the spirits favor you, perhaps a thin woven cloth guards your skin. If they do not, you ride bare beneath heavy layers of biting sweat-drenched fleece, all bound together by hands that knew nothing of a proper sinew stitch. There is no rushing water machine, no suds of cleansing root, and truly no spirit workers to magically dry your garments. So your robes are painted with earth, hardened like dried clay, and carry the scent of rotting leaves left to steep in a boar's den. Even if your heart yearned to cleanse them, the path is steep. You must drag heavy skins of water from the flowing river, boil them over the flames, scrape your shirt against a flat log with gray ash or lye water, and hang it for the sun spirit, who only shows his face for 3 short days a winter. And do not ask me to speak of the foot coverings. If you possess them at all, they are crafted of raw and softened hide, weakly bound with thin sinew, offering the earth walker as much strength as a rotted leaf. Most earth tenders merely walk with bare flesh through the mud, through the beast's leavings, through the hidden teeth of the trail, which are jagged stones and pools of foul sickness. All of this sings a single truth. Your flesh is at war with you. It burns with an endless itch. The jumping fleas, the hair mites, and the nest beetles claim your body as their own hunting ground. Every spirit knows this burden. The high chiefs, the holy men in their robes, the scratching little ones, all are walking nests of the creeping things. No soul runs fast enough to escape them. You will rake your flesh with a carved wooden paddle while speaking with the village shaman, and his eyes will not even widen at the sight. Your skin is stripped raw from the tearing of nails. Your head is a torn landscape of unseen bites. And should an angry red spirit bloom upon your arms, the wind brings no comfort. There's no medicine weaver, no cooling root salve, no elder to name the sickness as the burrowing might. You simply walk forward with the pain. And should the great spirit spare your wounds from deep rot, you may rejoice. That red anger will walk beside you for 6 moons like a shadowy companion you did not invite to the fire. Now that you are clothed in sorrow and bound tightly in affliction, it is time to face the open sky and labor until your spirit breaks thought. Now that you stand covered in the bite of insects and damp sheep's hair, it is time to show the dawn your joyous smile. Except you dare not, because in these ancient eastern lands, baring your teeth is a path of peril, not for the spirit, but for the bone. There's no scrubbing root, no crushing paste, no mint water, no cleaning thread. The wisdom of cleaning the mouth is as favored as the cleansing river plunge, which is to say, forgotten by the tribe. A few may gnaw on a bitter twig or wash their gums with soured berry blood, but largely your teeth fight a solitary battle, and they are falling fast. By the time your 25th summer arrives, your smile resembles the jawbone of a beast dragged from a burial mound. The dark pits run deep. The flesh of the mouth swells red. And those dark marks are not merely the stains of the harvest. It is the deep rot. You carry more decay within your jaws than a forgotten pit of autumn squash. The sweet cane dust, though not yet found in every lodge, grows plentiful among the highborn. Traded for many furs, used primarily in tiny baked cakes or to boast of overflowing wampum. If you are a chief, sing your praises. You win the prize of rotting your teeth swifter than the lowly planters. If you have nothing, you will lose them at a slower pace with soured grain loaf, sandy gruel, and passing winters of breaking hard roots with your bite. The jaw ache, let your spirit welcome it. It is like the winter wind, ever howling just beyond the ear. The sort of agony that drives a man to chant to the spirits, swallow
Bind your path to ours. Subscribe to the channel.
the dizzying water, or tear the bone from his own skull with the blacksmith's iron, and I speak no trickster's tale. That was the true medicine of the day. The bone healers of the mouth were unknown, but the hair shearers walked a darker path. Yes, the same warrior who cuts your locks will also drag the grinding teeth from your head by the light of burning fat, using a cold iron claw and no root to numb the mind. A sickness in the tooth. Pray you have a fondness for the burning fevers, for without the modern healing molds, it quickly summons the deep blood poison and sends you to the ancestors over a simple ache. Hear me well. The small pain that sends our people to the medicine lodge today would be your burial song in those ancient suns. And the joy of the tribe brings no shield. The sharing of breath, a foolish hope. The foul wind of the mouth blows through every lodge. If you seek a mate, no maiden looks to your smile. They look to your fields and your herd of horned beasts. The truth spoken plain, your mouth is a battleground. And the enemy claims victory. Now that your jaw beats like a war drum, let us walk beneath the sky. Because your true calling, the labor that will snap your spine like a dry branch, has only just awakened. Time to journey to the toil. Except there is no council lodge, no carved stone seat, no time to sip the warm morning brew, and no path to become the chief. Your path, if you stand with the great herd of the people, is clear as ice. Do not perish while shedding your sweat for another man's soft furs. You are an earth tender. Sing your praises. That means you bleed upon soil that belongs to a high master who likely cannot speak your naming word. You rise when the sun paints the east and rest only when it sinks behind the great pines. Your tools, a wooden digging stick, an iron blade eaten by the rust spirit, and whichever bones remain whole within your flesh. There is no resting moon. There is no ending of the hunt. There is only dawn to dusk, 6 suns of the week. The 7th sun offers rest, but only if you are not gathering the harvest, fighting off the shadow wolves of rival tribes, or chanting over a bruised foot to keep the black death away. The toil is a cruel bear. The earth is broken by your own hands or dragged by the great oxen, if your wealth can summon such a beast. You carve the earth veins, scatter the life seeds, rip away the choking weeds, and bear heavy waters until your back twists like the body of a serpent. No elder asks if your limbs are heavy. No spirit caller asks if your heart is weeping. If you are a daughter of the tribe, a sudden twist of fate, you do not only break the soil, you watch over the small ones. Wash, roast the meat, twist the sheep's hair, feed the squawking fowl, and act as though your mate's crown of crawling lice is not marching toward your sleeping mat. The young ones, they join the labor before their 5th winter. No learning circles, no carved dolls, only a small wooden scraper, and a silent prayer to not be swept away by the coughing sickness. And if you are one of the rare few who does not turn the soil, perhaps you shape the hot iron, stretch the animal hides, or bend the wood. May the spirits bless you. You still labor with breathing fire, burning waters, or the foul insides of dead beasts all day within lodges that trap the smoke. The reward, barely enough grain to hold your spirit to your bones. The gifts, perhaps a time to bleed out the sickness, a shattered limb, a silent weep. Catch the burning fever, swallow some heated green water, and walk on. You cannot stop your hands, not even for a single passing of the sun. Because if you do not toil, you do not feast. And if you do not feast, the ancient lords of the East have an answer for that. It is called feeding you to the crows. So you clasp your digging wood, quiet the screaming sores on your palms, and strike the earth again. Because in these forgotten moons, your labor is no honorable path. It is a slow, agonizing crawl against the setting sun. Now that your spine blazes with the fire of the earth's demands, let our words turn to the breath of the sky. Because in these ancient moons, the turning of the seasons is less a change of the leaves and more an unending wrath from the clouds above. Let us begin with the deep snows. There is no thick mud to seal the lodge, no great fire at the center of the earth, and no shield from the howling gales. Just timber walls with wounds so wide you might toss a wild bird through the gaps. Your sight holes covered with woven cloth, not the clear ice tone. The flame and the fire ring, comforting to the mind. But you possess too few branches to feed its hunger because the forest wood demands heavy wampum, and gathering from the deep woods is often forbidden by the lords. Yes, your head may roll from your shoulders merely for lifting a fallen branch from the master's sacred grove. You wrap yourself in your single damp sheep's hide, pull your knees to the fading coals, and still greet the dawn with a nose of solid ice. Your moccasins are forever cold, often weeping with moisture. Your digits are so rigid they feel like small frozen twigs of the winter birch. The black ice sickness of the flesh is given no healer's name. It is merely called the shadow of bad fortune. Now let us run swiftly to the season of the burning sun. A joyful thought, right? A foolish hope. In the summer moons, your lodge becomes a roasting pit of clay. There is no waving fan, no whispering breeze, and surely no sweet herbs to mask your scent. You leak water through your many layers, but you dare not shed them because bearing naked skin is an offense to the spirits. And it invites the angry touch of the sun, the bite of the swarm, and the heavy judgment of the village. The buzzing biters swarm in their greatest numbers, called by the scent of your unwashed skin, and the ghost of the goat broth from the past moon that ferments in the shadows. Blood drinkers sing in your ear while you journey to the dream world. Assuming you can find the dream world,
Mark this trail in the dirt. Subscribe to the channel today.
over the roars of feuding tribesmen and the wails of the newly born. In the planting grounds, the sky fire cooks your flesh. No root paste to block the light, no woven head covering, unless you twisted one from dry grass like a desperate spirit of the fields. In the darkest truth, your hands must still labor. The dizzy sickness of the sun is merely known as a faltering step. So you are either shaking like a leaf in your miserable shelter, praying your toes survive until the green buds return, or you are weeping sweat into your only woven foot wraps while your legs burn themselves into dust. And the one truth that the turning winds cannot change, no matter the season, your skin still bite your flesh, your daily bowl is still ash on the tongue, and the next brutal task waits like a hungry wolf. Welcome to the shifting winds of the ancient lands. The shield against the sky does not exist. Is your throat burned for the river? Do you long to wash the dust from your brow? Do you wish to cast cool water upon your face to shake free from the fevered nightmare of this waking path? A sorrowful answer for you. In the ancient times, the water is not your brother. It is a silent hunter waiting to steal your breath. Let us speak of the drinking gourd. The rushing creek nearby dances clear and full of life, like a vision from a tale spun by the fire. But before the song ends, hear the truth, it is a lie. Farther up the mountain, a villager has just emptied their foul dropping bowl into the current. And if the spirit spared you that, then surely the rotting corpse of a wild swine melts into the stream. The unseen serpents. the unseen sickness bringers, and the whole spirit army of the ancient lands waiting in every swallow. That is why the tribe drank fermented grain. Yes, dizzy water, even the little ones. But before you picture the youths dancing wild at the fire, no, it was a weak brew, poor in fire, rich in keeping breath in the lungs. The boiling chased the dark spirits from the water, making it safer than what flowed through the village mud. Fermented vine blood was another choice. If your wampum was great and you cared little for walking straight before the sun reached the middle sky, what of the river plunge? Surely the water was meant to cleanse. In Thales, perhaps. In truth, never. See, in those moons, the elders taught that the washing waters opened your spirit doors and let the shadow sickness inside. Hear me well. Cleansing your flesh was seen as inviting death. You were pure in their eyes if you never scraped away the crust of earth that armored your skin. Shared river lodges did stand, but they soon carried the name of places for idle chatter, broken vows, and heavy shadow deeds of the flesh. So the great stone shamans raised their hands and tore them down. Even if your heart yearned for the water, the journey was long. You must drag heavy skins from the deep spring, heat it over the roaring flames, fill a cracked cedar hollow, and chant that no other kin dirtied it before you, or worse, left their rot behind. And sky water gathered in open clay pots where the skybirds drop their waste. The buzzing biters lay their eggs, and the green slime grows thick. Does your spirit feel cleansed? So whether it flows to your tongue, onto your shoulders, or over your seeds, water in those ancient winters is less a giver of life and more a roll of the bone dice. One foolish swallow, and you spend your final suns burning in a nest of dried grass, clutching your belly and mourning the steps of your past. Next time you draw clear water from the earth, hold it high for those who walked before. They knew not the blessing of water without fear, so you swallowed the poison. Or perhaps you did not. Perhaps you only broke your toe on a river stone shaped like dark sorrow. By either path, sickness claims you. You cry out. You seek a medicine man, a tragedy you walk in the forgotten East, where healing is truly just polite torment wrapped in the chants of the holy men. Let us open the medicine bag. Every ill that finds you, whether a heavy chest, red skin, a shattered bone, or the great shadow death, is born because the 4 rivers of your body wander from their paths. These 4 rivers were the red blood, the white phlegm, the yellow gall, and the dark gall. By the wisdom of those elders, your strength relies on keeping them perfectly still, like a balanced pot of stew over the fire. Does the fire burn in you? Too much red river, the cure? Spilling the blood? Hear my words. They drain your very life spirit into a hollowed gourd with a blunt knife or a blood-sucking waterworm. And yes, the men who sheared hair were the ones holding the blade. Picture having your locks trimmed while your life water is stolen before the same fire. 2 pelts for 1 arrow, my friend. Is your heart heavy or leaping with fear? That is clearly a flood of the dark gall. The remedy? Scouring the bowels. Perhaps a heated root tea or merely loud chants and an icy skin wrap, while your kin look away and begin lashing together. Your burial platform now. If your branch snaps or a deep bite tears your flesh, your spirit is truly lost. There is no sweet smoke to numb the mind unless you count falling into the black
Join our tribe. Subscribe to the channel before the next tale.
void from the agony. The flesh cutting is done with flints that have not been washed since the great holy wars. Iron claws are held to the flame, not to banish the dark rot, but simply to bring terror to your eyes. The healing molds of the earth are moons away. The truth of tiny biters is unknown. They believe the shadow sickness rides on the foul wind, or that the great creator is angered by your crooked steps. Does your belly twist? It must be your wicked dreams. Pray you enjoy weeping your truths while emptying your gut. Should your shadow grow longer, they will bring more of the crawling water worms. perhaps a paste of smashed shells, and a stone shaman at your mat chanting the final travel songs just in case. At this turn in the path, they ready you for the final medicine known as the ancestors' embrace. And if by a trick of the spirits you rise again, the tribe simply believes the Great Spirit spirit you, the bone healer claims the victory, and the waterworm earns a higher seat. So truly, in those ancient winters, medicine is less about mending the flesh and more about living through the healer's hand. Following a long sun of heavy lifting, biting mites, and blood forms, the time for the feast arrives. You drag your feet to your wooden shelter, belly roaring like a bear, eager for the single light left on the trail. A heated bowl. Dark tidings. Your feast is likely seeking to end your journey. Let us speak of the simple truths. Hiding food from the rot is an unknown art. There's no icebox, no frost cave, only the sea tears, the wood smoke, or the prayer that the freezing wind preserves the flesh. Your hunted meat, if the spirits granted you such a prize, has hung from the poles for many suns, blanketed in buzzing wings, soaked in strange waters, and likely gnawed by the shadow mice. The baked grain is the great stone of the ancient hunger, but even that betrays you. In moons of poor yield, starving earth tenders swell the dough with tree skin, wood dust, or even river mud to make the rations last. And if it is the season of the wild stock, a dark gift waits. The black ear, a poison mold that brings shaking fits, spirit visions, and often the final sleep. It is like chewing a loaf woven with the madweed and the rusted iron's bite. The green leaves only when the earth freely gives them. And do you know what the earth always gives? The pale root. Countless pale roots. Seethed in water, crushed by stone, or bobbing in the endless stew. Which, if your mind holds the earlier tales, is truly a boiling bog of unknown findings that has been bubbling over the coals since your grandfather crossed the Great Divide. Sweet tree gifts might drop in the autumn winds, but they turn to rot swiftly, and the sweet dust is scarce, demanding heavy wampum, and hidden by the high chiefs to boast of their rotting smiles. The animal milk is another toss of the bone dice. White milk turns to poison before the sun moves across the sky. The churned fats and pressed curds last longer, but they teem with the unseen biters. The tribe swallows them regardless, for honestly, the choice is that or gnawing on the hide of your own moccasins. And let us speak of the flavored dusts, the burning seeds, the sweet bark, or the mountain nut, prized higher than the sun metal. For the lowly planter, the taste of the fire comes only from wild onions, the sea tears of the spirit's smile, and pure sorrow. Most feasts taste of a soaked carrying sack dusted with a heavy heart. Yet the food is not merely a danger to the flesh. It is a danger to the laws of men. The running beasts of the forest belong to the High Master, never to you. Found trapping a single hare, you could be stripped of wampum, cast into the deep pit, or even sent to the ancestors. Hear the truth. Your evening hunt could leave you swinging from the gray oak. So as you rest on your heels to your ashen broth by the dancing flames, know that every swallow is a dance on the cliff's edge. Yet you chew regardless, for in those forgotten winters, the feast does not give you strength. It merely challenges your spirit. The shadows grow long now. You have labored, bled, and barely held down the untrustworthy broth. You may believe the sun's journey is at its end, but do not loosen your shoulders, for the great Creator's eyes are upon you. So too is the stone shaman, and so is your lodge neighbor Agnes, who will surely sing your misdeeds to the chiefs if you fail to attend the sacred circle. In the ancient East, the spirit path is not merely a piece of your journey. It is the entire trail. The stone temple guides your turning moons, your tribal laws, your wisdom tales. If you possess the sight to read, you're coming into the world, your binding of hands, your final breath, and every footstep between. See them as the masters of your very spirit. and your tributes are forever lacking. Every passing of the sun is bound to the ringing iron. The village iron collar strikes at the dawn, the high sun, and the twilight, not for the sake of waking a sleepy mind, but because missing the chant brings a dark mark upon the soul. Fail to lower your head. A dark mark. Eat the running flesh on the 5th day. A dark mark. Let your mind wander to the neighbor's mate in the dream world. A double mark. And yes, the underworld of flame is deeply true. Brightly true. The shamans paint it with words of vivid terror. Rivers of blazing embers, lakes of bubbling lifeblood, shadow monsters wielding horned spears, and unending cries of sorrow. If the great coughing death fails to chill your bones, the unending fire surely will. You cannot read the sacred skins yourself, for they are drawn in an old, dead tongue, a voice hoarded by the robed ones, the high elders, and that single chief's son who believes he is above the earth. You lean entirely on the stone temple to read the signs for you. This means if the shaman declares your withered corn is born from your weak chants, well, it is time to press your knees deeper into the dirt. The spirit tax, a tenth of all your harvest, is an unbreakable law. If you plant the golden stalk, you surrender the stalk. If you breed the squawking fowl, you surrender the eggs. If your hands are empty, sing your praises. Your spirit is barren and your wampum is cursed. The days of rest, they are days of strict spirit law. Many moons full of them. And though they stay your hand from the digging stick, they are not meant for the leaping dances. They are for sitting in the sacred circle, starving the belly, speaking your dark thoughts to the wind, and teaching your heart that laughter is a forbidden berry. To speak against the stone temple is to invite the wolf. Those who walk different paths are given to the flames. Medicine women are swallowed by the river. Those who curse the spirits are struck with the whip, and those who doubt are swiftly broken to the yoke. So you walk the worn trail. You sing the songs. You lower your head. You send your smoke to the sky, hoping your spirit, after dragging through this mud-soaked journey, might finally find the green hunting grounds, assuming the robed shaman favors your face. Because in those ancient days, the Great Spirit might show pity. But the men of the stone temple, never. If you believed walking as a lowly earth tender was a harsh winter, imagine walking that path as a daughter of the tribe. All the dirt, the hollow bellies, and the shivering terror, piled high with the pains of bearing life, bowing to the masters and casting no shadow in the eyes of the village. In the ancient East, to be born a woman is to walk the steepest mountain trail with no healing herbs and no turning back. From her first cry, a maiden's trail is carved into unyielding stone, bound to a mate in her spring, bearing the young, fetching water for her warrior, and crossing over to the ancestors with weary bones. Learning the wisdom tales, a fleeting dream. Unless you are born to the high chiefs and given to the quiet lodges, the growth of your mind halts when you learn to press the animal fat and weave the torn hides. The joining of hands comes before the snows melt. Truly, before the spring. It is no strange tale to be promised at 12 winters and heavy with child by 14. It is not sung for love. It is bartered for hunting grounds, horned beasts, and the merging of war bands. Your voice is smoke on the wind. Once bound, you are truly just another pelt owned by your mate. Your hunt is to bear strong sons, fill the bowls of the kin, keep the hearth fire alive, and swallow your tears. Because a weeping tongue might earn you the name of a crow, or darker still, a dark medicine weaver. That dark naming carries a swift journey to the bottom of the river or the center of the pyre. Depending on the customs of the valley dot, bearing a child is throwing stones in the dark. There's no elder's root tea beforehand, no cleansed flint, no sweet smoke to numb the agony. The birth mothers fight fiercely, but even a small shadow on the path can mean the long sleep for the mother, the little one, or both souls together. Some daughters walk through 10 births and breathe. Many do not survive the second. But hold your breath. Once the little warrior cries, your burden grows heavier. Now you hold a wailing spirit in a bug-infested lodge, and you must give milk, roast the roots, sweep the earth, and still break the soil in the planting grounds. You find no rest beside the stream. You are the resting log for the rest of the clan. If you walk without a mate, the tribe eyes you like a wolf. If your mate has fallen, you are a wounded deer. If you speak with a strong voice, you are a storm. Maidens who refuse to walk the beaten trail were often named as walkers of the dark path, especially if they knew the secrets of the healing moss, held a fire in their spirit, or merely cast a strange glance upon a neighbor during a weeping rain. Even within the walls of the stone temple, your space is small. The silent sisters lived under the heavy club of law. No voice without a nod from the elders, no walking beyond the gates, and the weight of your soul forever measured lighter than a man's. Hear this truth. If you are a daughter in those ancient moons, you are demanded to weather the storm. Bow your head, multiply the tribe, and bleed without a sound. Most favored if you do so with a gentle face, because even in a season where all spirits starved, the women were commanded to starve as beautifully as the dawn dot. Thus far, you have wrestled with the deep mud, the hollow gut, the cruelty of the high chiefs, and perhaps an angry horned beast. But just as you believe the sky cannot turn any darker, here comes the bloody club, roaring, painted in red, and completely honored by the ancient laws of the East. Let the smoke clear. The ancient times were no gentle meadow. The thought of peace and balance truly meant praying the local warlord did not wake with a sour spirit. The spilling of blood is everywhere. Within the skins of the lodge, on the muddy trails, on the fields of war, in the squabbles of the stone temples, and sometimes while waiting for the shared roasting fire, wicked deeds run wild. The vengeance is savage. And justice is more a painted dance for the crowds than a shield for the weak. Snatch a hard grain loaf, you might leave your hand upon the block. Name the liar, a bone needle might pierce your tongue. Whisper too many tales, and you meet the iron jaw, a metal cage bound to your skull, with a heavy bit crushing your teeth. To guide your spirit back to the path, they would say, let us say the elders maim you for a dark crime. Denying the spirits, stealing wampum, weaving dark medicine. How do you show your hands are clean? By walking through the fire naturally. Welcome to the judgment of pain. One path, you plunge your hand into bubbling waters to pull a white stone from the depths. If the red skin fades without the deep rot in 3 suns, your truth is known. If the rot takes hold, you are a deceiver. Another trail may cast you bound into the rushing river. If the water swallows you, you spoke true and are likely with the ancestors. If the water rejects you and you float, you lie and will be met with the axe anyway. It is like a trickster's wager where the prize is your breath, and the trickster wishes only to see you fall. And if the elders sing your death song, the whole tribe gathers. The taking of life is done before howling throngs. Swinging from the oak, the chopping block, the roaring pyre. Sometimes the villagers bring roasted roots to chew. It is the ancient village's greatest gathering of the season. The striking of kin in the lodge is as common as rain. Men were permitted, even told by the elders, to use the switch upon their mates and little ones. Brawls in the dirt trails happen with every sun. You could meet a wooden club simply for casting a shadow upon a high chief's riding beast. And the war drums never truly sleep. Blood feuds of the valleys, clashes over the hunting grounds, great marches for the stone temple's gods. A war party is always walking the trail to pierce another tribe's hearts for pride, for the spirits, or merely to cure the stillness of the winter. The spilling of blood is not the breaking of the tribe in those times. It is the way of the tribe. Every soul walks with the heavy, knowing that breath is a fragile feather. The elders' rulings change like the wind. and the man in the next lodge might crack your skull over a wild boar dot. So place your moccasins with care, cast your eyes to the dirt, and never put faith in a warrior holding a heavy branch. By this turn in the river, you have survived the crawling mites, the bloodworms, the foul-smelling skins, and the heavy shadow of being torn open before the village. But now we reach the final bend in the trail for most ancient lives, a swift and uncelebrated crossing to the spirit world. If your heart still beats past your 40th winter, you are a legend whispered by the fires. You might even earn the naming word of the Ancient One, which is less an honor and more a magic trick against the odds. Let us read the bones. The usual journey lasts but 30 or 40 summers, but that short trail is made darker by the passing of the little ones. Nearly half of all who take their first breath cross back to the spirits before their 5th winter. The shadow sickness, a hollow belly, or one cruel season of ice was all it required. No medicine teas, no healing molds, no shield from the dark. If you survived the days of your youth, you stepped into a warrior's age with a spirit already drained. The heavy lifting began the moment you could stand on 2 feet, and by 25 summers, your bones ground together like the heavy timbers of a fortress gate. You might be missing a row of chewing bones, a digit from your hand, and the bright fire of your youth. The daughters of the tribe ran a uniquely fatal gauntlet, the bringing of life. It was the greatest hunter of the women in those ancient times. No roots to chase away the fire, no elder's cutting hand, only chance to the sky, boiling spring water, and a kin sister holding your palm while your lifeblood soaked into a bed of dry grass. For the braves, the wolves took different shapes, but hunted just as fiercely. The slipping of an iron plow, deep rot from a tiny thorn, a lodge brother's firewater madness, a holy war march ending in slaughter. Even walking the trail to the trading circle could end your song if you met a restless shadow walker or a furious gatherer of the chief's tribute. Death could also creep in silently as the black spot sickness.
Hear the Elder's next ghost song. Subscribe to the channel.
Turning great stone villages into valleys of bone between one sunset and the next. Or from the starving moons, which could stretch for whole turnings of the seasons, blowing away entire clans like dust. Or from the trickster's touch, like swallowing tainted harvest seed and wandering your final hours, seeing spirits and shrieking at the wooden poles. And the crossing ceremonies, you were blessed if a song was sung. The fallen were often hurried into the dirt to chase away the rot. No sweet-smelling resins, no carved cedar boxes, simply a torn piece of earth. A few whispered chants, and a low mound of mud. If there was even ground remaining in the sacred circle, so truly. In those days of iron, the trail was savage, brief, and forever stalked by the long sleep and all its uncaring faces. You did not earn a time to rest by the fire in your gray years. You simply ceased to walk the earth. And speaking of the final step, let us cross into the last valley. The ancient dream fades. So how has your journey been this sun? You awoke in the dirt, emptied your belly into a wooden bowl, scrubbed your teeth with empty hopes, nearly fell to the earth from a starving gut, broke the soil until your back wept, tore at your own skin beneath biting sheep's hide, begged the spirits to spare you the black rot, and narrowly escaped the chopping block for trapping a tree climber. Welcome to a single passing of the sun in the ancient lands across the water. Still dreaming of riding as a painted warrior of the king? Let the vision fade. That beautiful false song of the ancient times. Painted braves, highborn maidens, and tall stone lodges. Grand war parties and great feasts around. Roaring central fires dot, it is a trickster's tale, smoothed by dream singers and false visions dot in truth. The ancient world was made of rough stone, sharp teeth, and heavy sorrow. The pecking order of the flock was the only law. If you were born to the dust, You remained in the dust. If you were born to the high chiefs, sing your praises. You held a stronger shield against the long sleep, but you were still one spoiled broth away from the water sickness and a shallow grave. Even the great chiefs could not hide from the biting winds. The great stone fortresses were freezing caves filled with biting mites, choking smoke, and matings forced by the elders for power. Yes, you wore a thick bear pelt and drank the fermented vine blood, but you also held a coin's toss of falling in a petty raid or from a rotting wound born of a small wood dash splinter. It was no soft meadow. The older moons were not peaceful. They were a hunting wolf that never slept. Every path was a longer walk. Every wound burned deeper. Every deed, from bringing life into the world to chewing a tough root, carried a heavy price. The walk of life was a battle to breathe, not a time to rest by the stream. And if you truly found a silent breath to ponder, to walk the dream world, to paint a brighter sunrise in your mind, there was little you could build with those visions. No climbing to a higher seat in the circle, no modern medicine weavers, no looking glass to ask the spirits, what is this angry red skin? You breathed, bled, toiled, and met the ancestors within a short day's run from the very dirt where your mother birthed you. But hear the most wondrous truth of the human spirit. Through the deepest snows, the people still let out joyous cries, chanted their songs, spun tales by the fire, bound their hearts to another, and found the great spirit's purpose, not because the trail was smooth, but because the two-legged walkers are stubborn as the mountain goat. Even in the moons where the sun hid its face, they carved out a clearing for the light to shine. So this night, when you crawl into your soft, clean furs with flowing spring water, healing molds, and a warm hearth, perhaps whisper a quiet thanks to the spirits of today and to your grandfathers who battled the shadow mice, the starving moons, and the cruel chiefs, so you would not have to walk that path. The maiden of the distant valley, many winters before she became the great bear queen, high chief of the vast northern snows, shaper of new laws and burning flame of desire. She was merely a girl named Sophie, welcomed to the earth as Sophie of the distant German tribes in the winter of 1729. She was born to a small, forgotten lineage of minor valley chiefs. Her tiny hunting grounds offered nothing to make the great tribes tremble, but the maiden herself. She carried a medicine no feathered crown could ever grant, a mind sharp as knapped flint, a smile that could calm a raging bear, and a silent, roaring fire in her belly to become a legend. Her walking path as a child was bound tight with sinew. Her mother, Johanna, was an icy winter wind, not a soft, sheltering blanket, but a hawk forever watching the high branches to steal a better nest. Her father, a warrior of the Prussian war bands, was more a shadow in the mist than a heavy hand of law. From her early summers, the maiden learned to walk the razor's edge between a bowed head and a trickster's mind. She swallowed wisdom tales like a starving wolf, spoke the tongues of many tribes, and learned to read the shifting winds of a council lodge before opening her mouth. These were hunting skills that would soon become her shield and spear in one of the eastern land's most savage and bloody great camps. When the great bear empress of the north, Elizabeth, began hunting for a mate for her chosen son, the young chief Peter, she cast her eyes beyond the borders of their own snows. Peter himself shared the blood of the German tribes, and the empress believed a maiden from a distant land, soft like wet clay and full of thanks, would be easy to guide with a short leash. The young Sophie was the exact shape of this desire. She held chief's blood, prayed to the foreign spirits, a path she would be commanded to burn, and carried a name for moving like the river and bowing like the willow. After only 14 turnings of the seasons, The call reached Sophie to journey to the deep northern empire. She stepped into the icebound, great village of St. Petersburg in 1744. Wrapped in thin valley skins and wearing a peace weaver's smile, her mother thrust her into the fire. Like a bone thrown in a shaman's game, the Maiden, however, was tracing the lines of her own secret hunt dot to weave herself into the fabric of the northern tribe. She bowed to their great spirit, washing away her past and taking the naming word Ekaterina, the one they called Catherine. The naming circle was seen by all, heavy with spirit magic, and changed the course of her river forever. She was not simply singing a new prayer. She was setting fire to the trail she walked in on, stepping into an alien wilderness with no footsteps leading back. No elder watching that silent maiden in her fur-lined robes could have seen the visions of what the next moons would bring. Knives in the dark, an uprising of the braves, the waking of the mind, and the conquering of the world. But from the heartbeat, she placed her moccasin on the earth of the northern chiefs. She stopped being a played bone and began tracing the path to become the great mother of the tribe. The Lodge of Rattlesnakes, Catherine's binding ceremony to the young chief. Peter was meant to anchor her canoe to the shores of the northern royalty, but from the first rising of the sun, it felt more like an iron trap than a crown of eagle feathers. Peter, the one chosen to sit on the great bear throne, was not the shining warrior of the dream tales, stumbling in his steps, holding the mind of a child, entrapped by his love for little carved warriors. He cared far more for playing at war in his own lodge than guiding the great tribe or showing warmth to his new mate. The whispers in the dark even say he refused to share the sleeping mat for many long winters. He prayed to the spirit of the Prussian warlord Frederick and spat upon the northern tribe that had taken him in as their own. The young Catherine, however, wrapped her arms around the northern lands with the fierce grip of a mother bear. She mastered their tongue, listened to the tales of their ancestors, and held their spirit dances deep in her heart. She hungered to be one of the blood. Peter hungered to run into the woods. This broken harmony was not just a sadness of the heart. It was a danger to the tribe. The great camp of the north was a pit of coiled rattlesnakes, full of poisonous whispers, fearful eyes, and savage struggles for the chief's seat. The great bear empress still held the ultimate spear of command, but her life fire was burning low to the embers. Every warrior knew the changing of the seasons was near, and every elder held a hidden knife. The eyes of the tribe were forever fixed upon Catherine. Her painted skins were read by spies. Her shared fires were guarded, and every step she took was tracked in the snow. She could not place faith in her mate, nor her mother, who still sent ghost whispers on the wind for the gain of her own distant chiefs, nor even the women who tended her fire in this treacherous hunting ground. Blood brothers could turn into executioners before the dawn broke, but the young maiden was no foolish prey. She learned to dance the camp's deadly dances without a sound, growing a circle of loyal warriors in the deep shadows. She won the hearts of the war chiefs, shared smoke with the wise elders, and earned a name for standing tall and keeping her spirit calm. A sharp difference from her mate's childish howling and open disrespect for the ancestors' ways. When the hide flap fell over her door, Catherine began seeking the visions of the New Age thinkers, the great minds from the western shores, while the camp saw her only as a young mate to the heir. She was dreaming a grand vision, not merely for her own path, but for the whole Northern Empire tribe built on iron strength, deep wisdom, and clear sight. Yet a dark storm blocked the trail. The more moons Peter breathed, the longer Catherine was trapped in the mist, a mate without a voice, bound to a boy unready to hold the spear dot. So she sat still as the Huron watched the water and readied her net dot. She knew the great bear throne would not be handed down in peace. It would have to be seized with the claws, seizing the Great Bear Throne in the summer of 1762. After nearly 20 winters of sitting in the brush, watching the prey, and silently stepping over the dry leaves, Catherine saw her opening, and struck like the lightning from the sky, the Great Bear Empress had joined the ancestors, and Peter, taking the title of Tsar, finally held the great spear, but the binding on his spear began to rot away almost as soon as he gripped it. In just a handful of moons, Peter angered the shamans, spat upon the high chiefs, dishonored the war bands, and sang loud praises to the Prussian tribes, the ancient blood enemies of the North. He tore down the old laws, mocked the holy men, and spoke loudly by the central fire of casting Catherine away to take his shadow woman as his mate, the great Camp, already fearful of his wild and broken steps, turned cold as the winter ice. The war bands, led by chiefs whose hearts belonged to Catherine, growled like angry wolves in the shadows of the lodges. Even the common earth tenders, loyal to the spirits and the soil, saw Peter as a dancing doll carved by foreign hands, who laughed at their sacred ways. Catherine, watching the avalanche begin to slide, stepped out from the trees. In the sun-heavy moon of that same turning, while Peter was feasting away at his summer hunting grounds, Catherine called her warriors to rise without shedding a single drop of blood, guarded by the great war chiefs, including her heart's companion, Gregory of the Orlov kin, and his powerful brothers. She rode through St. Petersburg, painted in the colors of the great chief, was named Empress Catherine II, and won the war cries of the fiercest imperial braves. Peter, struck blind by the sudden storm and standing with no brothers to shield him, laid down his weapons before the sun had set many times. He was bound in captivity, and soon after was found walking the spirit trail under the cover of dark and unsaid truth. The criers of the camp called it a sudden rotting of the bowels. The whispers in the wind called it the blade in the dark. Catherine now wore the great bear crown, not by the blood of her mother, not by the binding of her mate, but by the fire of her spirit, the cunning of her mind, and the fierce courage of a hunter.
It was a tale never before sung around the fire. A maiden born of foreign winds, with no blood right, had seized the great northern throne without a single arrow taking flight. But her true hunt was only just dawning. She had to mold that daring strike for the spear into a legend that would outlast the deep snows. Would the great bear tribe welcome her? Would the high chiefs bow their heads? Could she bind the sprawling camps together without falling to the same dark spirits as her mate? Catherine held the wisdom that a spear taken by shadows could be stolen back in the dark. She needed to lead not as a trickster, but as a walker of great visions. And thus began her shifting from a silent stalker in the brush to a great bear empress of new trails, one who would paint new hunting grounds, welcome the western light of reason, and change the song of what a female chief could truly be. Once Catherine wore the eagle feathers, she might have slept by the
Keep the embers burning. Subscribe to the channel now.
warm hearth, but she did not. Her spirit dreamed of a grander hunt than merely resting on the carved log. She hungered to change the very soul of the North, and not solely with war clubs or council words, but with the power of the mind. While Peter had prayed to the Prussian warlords and carved wooden braves, Catherine sang praises to Voltaire, Diderot, and the brave dreamers of the Western Light. She put her faith in clear thought, forward steps, the passing of wisdom, and the duty of a high chief as a water-bearer for the tribe, even as she herself commanded with an unbreakable iron grip. Catherine did not merely listen to the tales of the New Age minds, she breathed them. She traded painted skins with Voltaire for 15 winters, offering sweet smoke to his pride while guarding her absolute rule. She welcomed Diderot to her great lodge and even gave wampum for all his wisdom scrolls to feed his fire. Beneath the closed hides, she studied the ancient laws, argued for new trails, and carved new rules to bring her people into the dawn. Her early moons were heavy with the labor of gathering the tribe's laws into one voice. She called a great council of chiefs in 1767, a mighty hunt meant to weave the entire law of the Bear tribe anew. Catherine's own written guiding word was a revolutionary drumbeat in a quiet skin, one that sang of all braves being equal before the elders, the evil of the breaking stones, and the duty of chiefs to feed the whole camp. For a great mother in the northern snows of those days, it was wild as a summer storm. But the western light had to survive the hard earth of the north, a massive, ancient, deep-rooted forest ruled by warlords who liked the earth tenders exactly where they lay, beneath their moccasins. Catherine read these signs. While she spoke of new trails, she walked with soft steps. She broke the tools of the torturers, opened paths to worldly learning, and raised new lodges for teaching and storing the wisdom scrolls. But she also bound the earth tenders tighter to the warlords to keep the high chiefs loyal. This was Catherine's dance on the narrow log. A wise woman of the sky and the sun, a ruthless hunter of the earth in the shadows. She walked the thin sinew between bright dreams and breathing, between the glowing fires of the western tribes and the muddy blood feuds of the ancient northern camps. Her dream for the Bear tribe was fierce, but always weighed on the scales. In truth, Catherine was not striving to turn the North into the West. She was striving to make the North a mighty force on her own path. And that meant change, yes, but holding an iron war club wrapped in soft rabbit fur. Catherine found no peace merely cleaning the inside of the lodge. She hungered to push the outer stakes wider, to forge a great alliance worthy of terror, honor, and the jealous eyes of all men. Where the great Chief Peter of old had opened a smoke hole to the setting sun, Catherine sought to tear down the very timbers. Under her guiding spear, the hunting grounds of the north stretched further than the eagle flies. She marched to war not merely to guard her eagle feathers, but to repaint the skins of the known world. One of her most thunderous warpaths was against the great Crescent Moon tribe of the south. These blood feuds, crashing like river rapids through the turning decades of her reign, were not solely for soil. They were for the spirit's reach. Catherine saw her spirit as the chain breaker of the true believers living under southern chiefs, and as the sacred shield-bearer of the eastern valleys. Under fierce war chiefs like Alexander Suvorov and Gregory Potemkin, the northern braves took sacred lands including the great southern peninsula, the northern shores of the dark waters, and paths to rivers that never freeze, a prize the northern grandfathers had dreamed of for ages. These great triumphs were not merely blood spilt, they were a howling cry to the heavens. With every taken valley, Catherine beat the drum. The Great Bear tribe was no longer the wild, forgotten brother of the West. It was a storm that covered the earth. She also turned her hawk's eyes to the setting sun. In a weaving of treaties and cunning council words, Catherine took part in the tearing of the Polish lands, slicing up the weakening White Eagle alliance alongside the Austrian peaks and the Prussian wolves. By the end of the third tearing in 1795, the White Eagle tribe was wiped from the painted skins entirely, and the North claimed endless new hunting grounds and countless new souls to bow before the throne. Yet Catherine did not solely conquer with war clubs. She also seeded the earth with new visions. Great new stone camps were raised, trails for the traders were widened. German planters were welcome to till the soil of the northern plains. The Great Alliance became a woven blanket of many colors, from the freezing northern sea to the sun-baked sands of the dark waters. And through every moon, Catherine stood as the central fire, reading the runner's scrolls, crying the commands, and watching with her own eyes the shaping of her sprawling lands. Enemies in the shadows would hiss that she was starving for power, even a devourer of worlds. But to Catherine, pushing the stakes outward was not mere hunger. It was the call of the Great Spirit. A mighty high chief, she trusted, was weighed not solely by their wisdom tales, but by the vastness of their trails. She did not merely wish to guide the northern snows, she wished to forge it into a legendary nation, terrifying to its foes, honored by its brothers, and loyal only to her voice. For all her shining light and heavy club, Catherine the Great Bear was equally sung about for what transpired behind the heavy hides of her personal lodge. And truly, not all of it was quiet talk over the wisdom scrolls. Catherine's unseen life became the loudest drumbeat of her time as chief. She took companions for her sleeping mat, not merely one or two, but a carefully chosen line of braves, many summers younger, often striking in face and sometimes wielding great weight in the council circle. She cast no shadows over them. In truth, she often gifted them with high names, vast hunting grounds, and rich wampum if they walked a straight path. If they stumbled, they were softly sent away, sometimes with a gentle nod of thanks and a higher seat far from her fire. Chief among these chosen braves was Gregory Potemkin, a warrior as cunning as he was fearless. Their bond washed away the lines between the heat of the heart, the ruling of the tribe, and the sharing of the spear. Some keepers of the past whisper they may have even bound their hands in secret ceremony. Together, they carved out warpaths, seeded new villages, and completely remade the southern lands of the Bear tribe. Potemkin was no mere warmer of the mat. He held the other end of the great spear in many truths. Yet, the western tribes could not look past the shocking tales. The whispering winds blew fiercely. Mocking story-skins painted her as a starving beast of desire, one whose thirst could never be quenched, even touched by the madness spirits. And after she walked the spirit trail, the lies only grew darker, the most wicked being the entirely hollow and twisted ghost story involving a great riding beast, scattered by her rivals to muddy the waters of her legend. But why the fevered fascination? It is plain to see. Catherine was a daughter of the earth who swung the heavy club without asking for forgiveness. And in a world where female chiefs were commanded to be either untouched spirits or weeping victims, she spat upon the script. She walked, loved, and led by the beat of her own drum, and that made her a terrifying storm. Ironically, while her enemies painted her as a dark walker, Catherine herself held deep, elder-like wisdom regarding the joining of bodies and the matters of the heart. She trusted that the joy of the flesh was a flowing river of life, and that the bonds of the mat did not need to poison the duties of the council fire. She kept the weeping of the heart apart from the swinging of the axe, a magic trick few male warlords ever mastered. In the light of the sun, her joinings were often cunning traps. She ringed her fire with braves who were true, strong of hand, and useful in the great games of the chiefs. And when their season passed, she released them to the wind, most often with a warm smile and a heavy pouch of tribute for their resting years. Catherine's hunt for love did not dull her blade. It was the very stone that sharpened it, a weaving of fire and iron that made her a song forever sung, deeply coveted and heavily dreaded. For all her bright spirit and tight grip, Catherine's time on the log was not without the shadow of the wolf. And in the winter of 1773, that wolf crept from the trees in the shape of a bearded wild horse rider named Yemelyan Pugachev. He was no common thorn in the brush. Pugachev sang to the winds that he was none other than Peter, the fallen chief and Catherine's dead mate. By his own tale, he had walked away from the shadow strike and now marched back to tear the great bear throne from the foreign thief. It was the babble of crows. Peter had long crossed the Great Divide. But to the North's broken and weary earth tenders, the song did not need to be the truth. It only needed to offer the dawn. The wild rider promised broken chains, an end to the heavy yoke, smaller tributes, and open hunting grounds for the lowly ones. His chant sparked a blazing wildfire across the great river valleys, most fiercely among the wild horsemen and those who prayed to the old spirits. In a season when the canyon between the high chiefs and the dirt scrapers had grown deep and bloody, his vows echoed like a healing rain. The uprising of this horseman swelled into the greatest storm of earth tenders in all the tales of the North. Settlements were swallowed, stone lodges crumbled, and high chiefs were sent bleeding to the ancestors. For one heart-stopping breath, it looked as though the great tribe itself would shatter like thin ice. Catherine felt the earth tremble. This was no distant blood feud she could silence with painted riders and peace pipes. This was a sickness from within the belly of her own camp, rising against the very stakes she had driven. Yet the Great Mother did not flee. She struck. She sent her most seasoned war bands to trample the uprising without a drop of mercy. The Wild Rider's braves were scattered to the wind in the turning of 1774. He was snared, dragged in a cage of iron, and finally separated from his head in the old stone city, a bloody totem for any who dreamed of his path. When the smoke cleared, Catherine gripped the reins of her camp even tighter. Her early visions of freeing the dirt scrapers quietly drifted away like morning mist. The bloody uprising had taught her the boundaries of the Western Light in a land still chained to the heavy clubs of the old warlords. She now leaned her weight upon the high chiefs, who traded their blood oaths for total mastery over their earth tenders. This was the bend in the river. The great bear who once sang the songs of Voltaire now favored a quiet camp over beautiful dreams. New trails were walked with fear. The eyes in the shadows multiplied. Defiance, even breathed softly, was to be crushed beneath the heel before it caught fire. The Wild Rider may have lost his skull, but he left a ghost whisper that forever haunted Catherine. That a lodge built on the backs of the broken could only stand so long before the tornado tore off the roof.
By the season, Catherine the Great Bear walked near the edge of her final winter. She had guided the north for over 30 turnings, longer than any mother chief in the tribe's memory. From the heartbeat, she gripped the spear. She had broken the old prophecies, remolded her great camp, and sung a new song of what a daughter and a high chief could become. Beneath Catherine's shadow, the North grew into a terrifying force among the Western tribes. Its hunting grounds swelled by countless days' runs, devouring the southern peninsula, pieces of the White Eagle lands, and long trails of the dark water shores. These were not simply victories of the war club. They were cunning turns of the path, capturing rivers that never froze, and redrawing the traders' routes. But her legend was not solely painted on the earth's skins. Catherine carved her spirit into the soul of the people. She raised the Great Lodge of Wonders, gathered one of the most vast troves of beauty across the lands, and traded smoke with the brightest dreamers of the Western Light. Her central fire became a gathering place for grace, crafted beauty, and the hunting of high wisdom. In a camp often mocked as savage beasts by the Western tribes, Catherine hammered the North's totem pole deep into the center of the world. She walked new trails of teaching, raising learning circles for the daughters, and pushed the pressing of the wisdom scrolls. She brought the scratch medicine for the spotted death to the North, even taking the healer's cut before the whole tribe, a deed of fierce warrior's courage in her day. Still, her time on the log was a weaving of clashing colors. While she praised the dreams of the Western Light, she never cut the bindings of the earth tenders. In truth, she dragged the heavy yoke even deeper into the North's expanding valleys. Her new paths, though grand to the eye, fell only from the high peak, meant to paint the great camp without truly moving its deep roots. Yet Catherine's spear brought a still wind and a fierce hunger. She held the truth that the eagle feather was not simply passed down. It was carved by hand, guarded fiercely, and forever fought for. She guided not by the decree of the sky spirits, but by the fire in her chest, the cunning of the council, and the cold counting of the hunter. She was given many naming words: a thief, a cruel wolf, a pathmaker, a siren of the dark. But above all, her arrow struck the mark. When she walked the Spirit Trail in 1796, the North was richer, vaster, and more terrifying than it had been in countless passing ages. She left behind a bare throne anchored deep, a great tribe stretched wide, and a ghost song that would echo through the winters to come. Catherine did not merely sit on the skins. She led with a hawk's eye, a trickster's mind, and a fearless grip upon the river of time. And in walking this trail, she became more than a great mother. She became a spirit legend. For all her strength, endless hunting grounds, and lingering ghost songs, Catherine the Great Bear was still at her heart, a daughter charting a brave's forest and bending the branches to her own reflection. Behind the painted hides and shouted laws was a soul deeply awake to how thin the ice was beneath her moccasins. She was not born of the northern blood. She stole the high seat through a shadow strike. She guided a great camp that spat upon a mother holding the spear. And yet she did not merely weather the storm, she grew tall as the pine. Catherine was never pleased to be a quiet bead on a necklace. She sought visions endlessly, carved her thoughts into the scrolls, and never ceased tracking the wisdom of the elders. Her walk through the sun's passage was fierce. Long shadows spent reading the scouts' marks, sending runners to distant chiefs, painting the tribe's laws, and taming a council ring full of bared teeth. She found no joy merely resting upon the bear throne. She wielded the chief's seat like a wise woman birthed by the spirits for the task. She was also, on many trails, walking alone in the dark. She ringed her fire with flatterers, companions of the mat, and dream weavers, yet carved into her private skins how few souls she could truly hand her knife to. Her blood son, Paul, whom she eyed like a snake and kept far from the council smoke, grew into a brave she feared would burn all her planted seeds. Her deepest joining of the heart with Gregory Potemkin cooled into a thick blood brotherhood, but his journey to the ancestors in 1791 left a gash that no herb could ever close. Catherine wove her spirit face with the utmost care. She knew the magic of the storyteller and swung it heavier than most high chiefs of her turning. She wore the masks of the North's great mother, the wise sky chief, the fierce warrior, the empress, and the keeper of beautiful songs. But beneath those painted masks was a daughter who had walked through bitter snows, broken oaths, wicked whispers, and roaring uprisings, and never stopped her march. When she crossed the Great Divide in 1796, she left behind a changed world, but also whispers in the wind. Could she have struck harder to break the chains of the dirt scrapers? Were her bright visions of the West muddied by the bloody games of the chiefs? Was she more a pathmaker or a warlord? The elders remember her by a naming word she never claimed for her own, the Great Bear. It was not because she walked without stumbling, or spoke with a gentle tongue, or balanced the scales perfectly. It was because she stole the fire and burned it by her own laws in a moon and valley where daughters were forbidden to hold the flint. She did not merely wear the eagle feathers. She painted a whole new legend of what a warrior must bleed to earn them. In the sweating shadows of the great southern jungles, the broken stones of Palenque breathe ghost tales from the ancient Maya ancestors. Giant spirit lodges reach above the green canopy, their pale stone faces eaten by the passing suns, but still overflowing with hidden truths. And in the turning of 1994, one of those deep truths stepped into the light. A band of earth readers led by Fanny Lopez Jimenez was walking the stones of the Third Lodge, a quieter stepped mountain beside the great temple of carved words, the resting place of the mighty chief Kahlo the Great. The silent stone lodge was not believed to hide great wampum until their eyes caught a strange twist in the path. A closed, dark belly buried deep beneath the roots of the stone. No shadow thieves had broken its seal. It was untouched by the wind. When the earth readers pierced the wall and descended into the dark, they found a carved stone sleeping box resting in heavy silence. The air was thick with the breath of countless forgotten winters. As they rolled back the heavy stone, a crimson dust drifted up like spirit smoke, bright, roaring red. The belly of the box was painted in powdered fire earth, a poison dust the ancient ones used to speak to the gods. And resting softly within that bleeding cloud lay the white bones of a woman. She had been given to the earth with deep honor and holy chants. Her branches were brittle but unbroken, her skull still bearing a mask of green river stone, and her form encircled by spirit gifts, hanging stones, crowns, and earrings, all shaped from the sacred green rock and the shells of the great waters. Every mark upon the stone sang of a high mother of the tribe. Yet no naming word was carved into the earth. No painted signs spoke her truth. It was among the greatest caches of wampum ever gifted to a daughter of the southern suns. And yet her face remained hidden behind the smoke. Why was she laid to rest in the red dust? Whose blood beat in her heart? Was she a great mother, a voice of the spirits, or perhaps even the mate of the high chief Pakal? The Earth Readers named her the Queen of Red Fire, and the song remained. But even with the magic of tomorrow's healers, they could not speak her true name, knowing only she walked the earth many hundreds of winters ago, when the stone city of Palenque burned brightest. Unlike the spirit boxes of most ancient ones, hers was tucked away in the deep shadows, unbothered and hidden by design. Her giving to the earth was not merely a gathering of kin, it was a speaking to the gods. This daughter was not meant to be held in the mind through spoken words. She was meant to be remembered through the sacred dance, through the color of life, and through the thick mist she left in her wake. The most chilling whisper of the Red Queen's resting place was not her green riverstone jewelry or the heavy quiet of the sealed belly. It was the red dust. A heavy blanket of crushed fire earth covered the world within. The stone box, the rock walls, her very bones, even the spirit gifts laid around her. It clung like fresh blood to the pale stone. To the ancient Maya grandfathers, this was no wandering step. Fire earth, ground from the poisonous red rock, was among the most holy and deadly medicines of the old world. Its blinding red face was not simply a beauty to the eye. It sang of lifeblood, of waking from the long sleep, and the running river that bound the walking braves to the sky spirits. Red was sacred. It was the color of the dawn, of the spilling of blood, of breath rising from the ashes. And it was not merely a painted story, it was deep spirit magic. Bathing the fallen in fire earth was a sacred chant meant to change the flesh, holding it not for the freezing of time, but for the great crossing. In the ancient belief, the final breath was not the end of the trail. It was a bridge, a stepping into another layer of the sky. And so, the Queen of Red Fire, whoever her kin may be, was readied not just for the dirt, but to sit among the stars. But there is a darker root to this tree. The fire earth holds a bitter poison. To breathe it deeply brings the shaking sickness, spirit visions, and the final sleep. The ancient ones likely did not know the hidden humors of the rock, but they felt its roaring fire. It was wild, mighty, a wolf showing its teeth. To wash the fallen in its dust was to cry to the heavens that this soul was no common earthwalker. In the great stone camp, very few were laid to rest with the fire earth. Pakal the Great, the mighty high chief whose carved mountain watches over the valley, was one. His fallen vessel, like hers, was drowned in the red dust. That single track in the mud sparked many fires of thought. Was the Queen of Red Fire his chosen mate, his mother, or a spirit walker of equal sky power? Her skull had been laid upon the pelt of the great spotted cat, another holy sign of the jungle. Encircling her, bone needles, blades of black glass, and tiny carved figures of green stone whispered of sacred dances danced either in her breathing days or to honor her long sleep. Every piece of her resting place told a story without a tongue, a tale of great power wrapped in the night sky. A daughter readied to walk down into the dark roots of the world, not with a quiet step, but in a roaring chant, drowned in the color of the great sacrifice. Encircling the Queen of Red Fire's blood-soaked bones lay a world of utter stillness, pierced only by the shine of green riverstone, shell of the deep waters, and black glass. These were not simply pretty trinkets to catch the eye. They were spirit gifts, each piece chosen with a heavy heart to walk with her on the long trail to the afterlife, the dark lands of Xibalba. At her sides rested heavy loops of green stone, cold to the touch, their smooth faces still holding the sun after 300 winters beneath the soil. Green stone was not simply a prize, it was the breath of the divine. The Ancient Ones saw it as the mark of a life that never fades. It mirrored the green of the life-giving maize, the beating heart of the deep jungle, and the wind of the creators. Only the highborn were returned to the earth with the green stone. For the Red Queen, it blanketed her chest, her wrists, and her ears. A ringing bell that in her breathing days she commanded the winds, perhaps even holding the favor of the sky. One of the most striking totems was the death mask of green stone laid gently over her face. Unlike the shining sun-metal masks of the desert kings across the great waters, this one was quiet, woven from many tiny chips of stone placed to trace the hills and valleys of her own bone. The mask served a deep spirit work, to guard her soul, to keep her face known to the stars, and to show her as a god when she met the eyes of the creators. Scattered near her hands were sewing bones, blades of black glass, and carvings of the seashell. These might have been tools of the sacred fire, or marks of her seat as a voice of the gods, a medicine woman, or the great mother of the tribe. One carved bone held faint marks, a soft echo of her voice eaten by the turning moons. At her feet, and along the borders of the stone box, sat clay pots, still sealed shut, likely once holding gifts for the belly. Meats, waters, or sweet smoke to feed her spirit beyond the final breath. The Ancient Ones held the truth that the long sleep was a great journey, fraught with wolves, deep valleys, and heavy trials. These goods were not foolish riches, they were survival tools. To the eyes of today, the resting place feels close to the heart, not burdened with greed, but heavy with meaning. There was no sun metal, no rolling war carts, no hollow boasting, only items holding the weight of the spirit. It was a map drawn for the soul. Through these sacred stones, we glimpse how the ancient grandfathers understood the final breath, not as a closed door, but as a passing of the spear. The Queen of Red Fire was not buried to fade into the dust. She was being readied to fly. For all the power of her stone lodge, the Queen of Red Fire left behind one echoing canyon. No naming word, no painted stories blessed her stone box. No carved markings on the walls called out her lineage. She was, without doubt, a high chief of women. But who? From the sun, her tomb was broken open. The wise ones began tracing the animal tracks to find the truth. The loudest song sings that the Red Queen was Zakbu Ajau, the bound mate of Kinich Janab Pakal, sung of today as Pakal the Great, the most legendary chief of Palenque. Zakbu Ajau was not merely a shadow to the chief. She was born to a high lodge and joined her hands to Palenque's royal bloodline when the spring was still fresh in her eyes. She birthed at least 3 strong braves, all of whom carried the heavy spear of the chiefs, and she stood in the center of the sacred circle during the moons her mate ruled the lands. If any daughter of the tribe earned the right to be buried with such high honors, it was her. Giving strength to this tale was where her bones were laid, but a few paces away from Pakal's own mighty resting mountain in the Temple of Carved Words. Resting so close whispers of a path chosen with purpose, a chief and his mate holding the camp together even in the spirit world. And then there is the Fire Earth, Only 2 fallen ones in the great stone city were found, drowned in such heavy red dust: Pakal and the Queen of Red Fire. It is a foolish thought to call this the wind's accident. But here is where the mist grows thicker. The healers of today tested the deep blood roots of both fallen ones, hoping to bind them together. But the answers were like smoke in the wind. The daughter's bones showed no blood tie from the mother's line to Pakal. But that did not break the song of a mating bond. After all, the joining of the sleeping mat does not ask for shared blood. Some have sung she might have been Saka Cook, Pakal's fierce mother who held the great spear of Palenque before his arms were strong enough to lift it. Others whisper she may have been a high spirit talker, a sister, or an ancient mother of the tribe whose name has simply been washed away by the rains of time. Still, the tracks point most fiercely to Tzakbu Ajao, a queen in truth, a mother of chiefs, and a spirit twin to the great Pakal. The missing naming word may not be a forgotten task. It may have been a chosen path. In the eyes of the ancient Maya, the soul did not breathe on through towering rocks, but through the sacred fire, the signs of the earth, and the soft whispers of the wind. And so the Queen of Red Fire hangs in the mist between the campfire tales and the waking world. A woman who held the power of a chief, remembered not in cold rock, but in the color of blood and the heavy weight of silence. To see the heart of the Red Queen, we must look at the forest she grew from. A forest where the daughters of the Maya, most of all the highborn, wielded a heavier club than many travelers know. In the ancient camps, the guiding of the tribe was most often a weaving of the whole family's blood. Highborn daughters were not merely silent companions of the mat. They were peace weavers, spirit talkers, and holders of the great scales. They led the sacred dances, raised the stone lodges, and held the heavy roots that kept the chief's tree standing tall. Their blood was the sacred wampum, used to bind the war bands and hold fast the grip on the great spear. Look to Sakkuk for truth, the mother of the mighty chief Pakal. When the high seat of Palenque stood empty, she gripped the spear herself and guided the camp as the Great Mother until her brave grew strong enough to lift it. She was no empty shadow holding space. She was a high chief by her own fire, shouting the laws and guiding the carving of the great stones. Without her wind, Pakal's eagle may never have taken flight at all. And she did not walk this path alone. Across the ancient jungle, in great camps like Yachilan, Naranjo, and Calakmul, the carved rocks sing of daughters leading the highest dances, speaking peace in times of blood, and sometimes holding the spear above all others. They were often painted on the stone pillars and lodge walls, wearing towering crowns of bright feathers and sacred skins, standing beside the chiefs as brother wolves, or sometimes looking down upon them from a higher branch. Their voices were cut into the eternal rock. Their naming words were sung until the fires burned out. By the time the iron-clad wanderers arrived from the sea many winters later, much of that spirit song had blown away. The eyes of the strangers saw the daughters of the earth as silent shadows in a camp ruled only by braves. But the bones in the dirt sing a different song, a tale of intertwined paths where the heavy club was bartered for, not merely handed down the bloodline. This truth throws the light of a new dawn upon the Queen of Red Fire. She may not have carried the chief's title, but her stone box, heavy with wampum, holy, and resting beside Pakal, whispers she was a mighty trunk holding up the sky of the tribe. Her face of green stone was not simply for the eye, it was the true face of her spirit, a mark of strength wielded in the sun and guarded in the dark. Her lifeblood may have been the very pine pitch that bound the great spear of Palenque together. In the ancient jungle camps, a high mother was not merely a high mother. She was the watcher of the sacred roots, a lead singer at the fire, and often the fallen log bridging the gap between the sky spirits and the earth walkers. The Queen of Red Fire may carry no naming word, but in her valley, she was never without a roaring voice. The Queen of Red Fire was not merely laid to rest with shiny wampum. She was swallowed by stone carved with deep purpose, folded into the ancient star knowledge holy signs and the cunning plans of the builders. Her resting place was no simple hole in the dirt. It was a spirit door to the unending hunting grounds. Her bones were tracked down inside the 13th Lodge, one of the lesser stone mountains within the beating heart of Palenque. Yet how it sits so close to the Temple of Carved Words, the final sleeping place of the mighty Kahlo, speaks a loud truth. These stone lodges were not stacked by the blind wind. Their places on the earth were sacred, led by the star paths, the ancient tales, and the blood ties of the chiefs. The 13th Lodge climbs softly when stood against its giant brother. But it guards a secret much closer to the heart. A closed stone belly, unspoiled by the shadow thieves, kept perfectly whole. It was carved deep inside the mountain's heart, reached only by a sharp squeezing path of descending stones. The climb down into her resting place feels like a spirit walk, a sacred journey sinking into the dark roots of the world. The stone belly itself is bare, built of shaped rock, bound tight for over 1,300 winters. No painted signs or carved tales blanket the walls. No dancing shapes in the stone sing her song. But perhaps that quiet was chosen by the elders. This was a cave, not for the breathing to read, but for the fallen to change their shape. In the middle, her stone box sits like a sacred fire pit chipped from the pale rock. It sings the same song as the giant stone bed of Kahlo one lodge over. While Kahlo's stone lid is widely known for carvings of his spirit growing anew from the world tree, the Red Queen's cave is held in softer whispers. The eyes are drawn inward to the flesh, to the fire earth, to the sacred dance of the final breath itself. And still, there are hidden signs in the stone that point to a deeper truth. The stone box is pointed from the dawn to the dusk, a spirit trail mirroring the sun god's walk from waking to the long sleep. The cave is tight, but roars with strength. It feels deeply chosen, woven for one alone, a holy nest for a daughter honored by the whole camp. The ancient stone lodges were tools to speak with the sky, fallen trees crossing the rivers between the stars, the dirt, and the dark roots. To be given to the earth inside, one was to be lifted high above the trails of two-legged men. The Queen of Red Fire's Forever Lodge was not a hasty thought at sunset. It was a gently carved holy place, a clearing where the final breath became the growing of wings. Her branches rest in rock, her spirit in the red fire earth, and her legend in the shape of the stone mountain itself. A stone lodge that sings without a tongue, telling our hearts she carried great weight. To the ancient grandfathers, the long sleep was not the end of the trail. It was a stepping stone, a holy path down into the dark roots they called Xibalba. And for a daughter like the Queen of Red Fire, this crossing was not merely of the spirit. It was a matter of the tribe, tied to the stars, and steeped deep in the sacred dances. The burial chants were perfectly walked circles, born from the oldest tales, sung to guide the wandering soul through the wicked traps of the Shadowlands. The painted skins and carved stones tell us that Xibalba was no quiet hunting ground. It was a tangled brush of endless night, rivers of spilled life, cruel tests, and lords of the rotting flesh. Only those given to the earth with the right songs, washed in the sacred ways, and carrying the right spirit wampum could walk that trail unbroken. The Queen of Red Fire was planted in the dirt, swallowed by the fire earth, locked in rock, and ringed with holy gifts, all the painted marks of a high chief's long sleep. But the wind carries more. The sewing bones and black glass knives in her cave point to the spilling of one's own blood for the spirits. Perhaps they were spirit tools, showing the sacred cuts she made while breathing, or danced again as she fell asleep to give her soul a warrior's strength. Her death mask, woven with great care from chips of green stone, was not just a pretty face to catch the sun. It likely acted as a spirit canoe, keeping her true face and naming words safe as she paddled into the dark waters. In the ancient teachings, the face was the reflection of the inner fire, and the inner fire needed to be known by the creators. The clay pots circling her may have once carried the dark bean brew, the golden seed, sweet water, or the dizzy milk to feed her strength in the hidden valleys. Other gifts like the spikes of the sea bat or the horns of the deep water shells could have been tools for the spirit, loud cries to the sky lords, or wampum to trade words with the unseen. The giving to the earth was not merely a tearful farewell. It was a shedding of the old skin. The ancient ones trusted in the turning of the great wheel, the final breath as the acorn, the dirt as the planting ground, and the spirit world as the blooming of spring. Chiefs and great mothers were often seen as the sky spirits walking in moccasins, and when they fell asleep, they walked back to those starry campfires. The Queen of Red Fire, drowned in the color of the life river, swallowed by a stone mountain, and praised with gifts, was being readied for the waking, not as a common earthwalker, but as a spirit woven into the great blanket of the sky. Her passing was not the final beat of her drum. It was the first breath of her endless song. But a few paces down the trail from the Queen of Red Fire's last sleeping place sits one of the most whispered of stone boxes in all the southern lands. That of Kinich Janab Pakal, sung to the winds simply as Pakal the Mighty. His planting inside the great lodge of carved words is honored for its beautiful stones, its mountain-like size, and its heavy ties to the spirit world. But what makes the Red Queen's stone cave so wondrous is not merely what rested in its belly, it is the ground it was buried in. Her stone bed was tucked inside the 13th lodge, standing shoulder to shoulder with Pakal's great marker. In a camp like Palenque, where every lodge was placed with care to mirror the paths of the stars, this standing so close was not a trick of the wind. It was a choice of the elders, a heavy truth cut into the mountain. Many wise earth readers trust the Queen of Red Fire was Tsakbu Ajao, Pakal's great mother and closest keeper of the fire. Though her cave holds no carved stories, the mirrored reflections between their long sleeps are as bright as lightning. Both swallowed by the red fire earth, both locked inside the stone mountains, both planted with green river stone, and both bowed to with the highest honor. These final chants echo one another, like two sides of the same sacred drum. Pakal's stone lid is widely sung for showing him falling into the dark roots of the world tree, a star tale of the final breath and the new dawn. The Queen of Red Fire's quieter cave holds no such painted visions, but the deep magic lives in how they stand together. If Pakal was the sun spirit, walking through the dark roots at night to climb the sky at dawn, then the Queen of Red Fire may have been the Moon Mother, the feminine wind that walks her own secret trail across the stars. Together, they held the two sides of the Great Circle, the brave and the maiden, the high chief and the great mother, the sun and the moon, the law and the sacred dance. In the ancient grandfathers' tales, holding the spear was never a solitary walk. It was a shared fire. Peace in the sky demanded a perfect balancing of the scales, and that balance grew roots deep into the council lodge. By planting the Queen of Red Fire beside Pakal, the Ancient Ones were guarding not just a mating bond, but a twin flame of the heavens. Their closeness in the long sleep may have mirrored their steps in the waking sun. A great mother not walking behind, but beside her chief, sharing not just a carved log, but a song for all time. In their stone caves, they chant without a tongue. Two spirits blanketed in fire, earth, and rock, holding hands across the great divide. One of the Earth's most holy quiet moments. Though her naming word was swallowed by the turning moons, the Queen of Red Fire of Palenque stands tall, not as a crumbling bone, but as one of the most hidden and mighty daughters of the ancient Earth. Her stone lodge, bound tight for over 1,300 winters, now whispers across the ages, calling out riddles that beat like a louder drum with every turned rock. She is a shadow tale that still fights the light of the fire. We may never hold the true knowledge of her face. No chipped rock sang her naming word. No standing stone told her journey. And yet the gentle hands of her planting, the heavy wampum of her gifts, the spirit signs of her blood-soaked branches, all chant of a daughter of deep weight, not merely as a mate or shadow, but as one who held true power, heavy spirit medicine, and the blood of chiefs. In this sun, the Queen of Red Fire forces the Earth Readers to look again at their own tracks. She is a howling wind that in the ancient jungle, the daughters were never without a voice. They led the sacred smoke, guided the great stone camps, and molded the lines of the chiefs. While braves like Pakal have long stood in the center of the sun, the Queen of Red Fire's waking reminds our hearts that the heavy club did not rest only in the hands of men. It ran like a river through the mothers, great queens, spirit talkers, and dream weavers. Her ghost song is louder than the shining stones she left in the dirt. It is the council fire she has sparked among the bone readers, the keepers of tales, the painters, and the dream singers. Every green stone, every blanket of red fire earth, every carved step in the lodge tells our spirits something chosen with purpose. This daughter moved the earth, and perhaps that is the most powerful magic of her trail. Not the tracks we can read, but the ones still hidden in the brush. The Queen of Red Fire teaches our souls that the past is not merely a pile of dry bones. It is a breathing riddle, a shared hunger of the two-legged to touch the hands of the ancestors. In that light, her ghost song is still being sung. She sleeps blanketed in red, the color of breath and offering, of life water and the breaking dawn. Her face, once veiled behind a mask of green river stone, now looks back at our fires through the healer's tools, painted visions, and wide eyes. She stays without a naming word, but not without a song, hidden in the mist, but never lost to the wind. The Queen of Red Fire may have guided a great camp in the waking sun, but in the long sleep, she guides something vaster, our dreaming minds. Her cave was bound in rock, her tale was carved in quiet, and still, by the spirit's breath, she sings. The painted bird of the Blue Lodge. Frida of the Kahlo kin drew her first breath in the summer of 1907 in the bright painted lands of Coyoacan, then a small gathering of lodges on the edge of the great stone city of the south. Her youth lodge, the Blue House, was overflowing with bright paints, clashing winds, and a silent, unbending spine. It would in later moons become a safe valley, a bloody war ground, and a great shrine to one of the most legendary vision painters of the modern turning. Frida was the third of 4 maidens born to Guillermo, a shadow catcher from the distant eastern tribes, and Matilda, a strict prayer woman, carrying the mingled blood of the ancient earth-tenders and the men of the great ships. Her elders were like fire and ice. Guillermo, quiet as the owl and deep in thought. Matilda, bound to her gods and cold as the winter stone. Frida would claim her father's inward gaze and painter's eye, but also her mother's fierce fighting bear spirit. As a little one, Frida was full of spirit visions, loud of tongue, and fearless. She devoured the wisdom scrolls and asked riddles the elders wished to ignore. But in her 6th winter, a dark sickness took her, leaving her right leg withered and weaker than its sister. A broken branch she sought to hide with long, flowing woven blankets, but never allowed to clip her eagle wings. The dark sickness left her bound to her sleeping mat for many moons, cut off from the laughter of the other little ones. In this quiet time, she grew bound to her father, who urged her to build her strength, ride the 2-wheeled iron horses, and keep her mind sharp as flint. Unlike most maidens of her son, Frida did not dream of becoming merely a mate or a tender of the hearth. Her hunt was to become a medicine woman, stepping into the grand learning lodge of the great stone city in her 15th summer, one of only a few daughters allowed to sit by that fire. There she shone like the morning star, not merely for her quick mind, but for her trickster's tongue, wild visions, and her own fierce way of wearing the painted skins. She bound herself to a band of young dreamers named the Cachuchas, who sparred over the ways of the world, the ancient tales, and the paths of the chiefs. Frida was pulled to the uprisings, to thoughts that shook the old totems. But even in those early suns, before the breaking of the iron wagon that would shatter her flesh, and before the loud songs that would carve her legend, Frida of the Kahlo kin was already drawing her own face upon the earth, with sharp flint, unbowed visions, and a spirit too vast to be caged by any elder's design. She was not merely growing tall in Coyoacan, she was gathering the clay to mold herself anew. In the autumn moons of 1925, Frida's river was split by a great boulder. The maiden she had been on one side, and the fierce woman she was forced to walk as on the other. That sun descent, she stepped onto a wooden wagon with her young brave Alejandro after leaving the learning lodge. They were sharing laughter, poking at one another like young cubs, and likely crossing words. Frida never walked a trail with only half a heart, but a breath later, the wooden wagon was struck by the great iron beast of the trails, and in a single heartbeat, her tomorrow was torn into agony, twisted iron, and deep quiet. The striking was a nightmare vision. The iron beast crushed the wagon against a stone cliff, shattering the timber and casting the travelers into the air like dry leaves. Frida was pierced through by a spear of iron. It bit into her left side and tore out through her center bones. The great tree of her back was snapped in 3 places. Her weak leg was ground to dust. Her foot was torn from its path. Her upper chest bones and the cage of her heart were broken. Her shoulder was ripped from its socket. Her belly was laid open. She had seen but 18 summers. A stranger blanketed her shivering form with a heavy hide. Another saw that her broken flesh was shimmering, not from the red life water, but from the sun-metal dust she had carried in a small medicine bag. It had burst when the beast struck, dusting her shattered frame in what looked like the ashes of a falling star. Frida was carried to the great healing lodge and suffered the bone setter's knives many times over the turning moons. She lay for weeks bound in a shell of hard clay, flat upon her spine, frozen as a stone, wrestling with the deep rot and the dark fog of tomorrow. The vision she held of walking as a medicine woman drifted further into the mist with every setting sun. But in that heavy quiet, a new wind began to blow. Her father gifted her the painter's sticks. Her mother bound a wooden frame to hang over her sleeping mat. A looking-glass was tied above her so she could hold her own gaze. And there, trapped in the hard clay and burning pain, Frida began to paint. First to chase away the slow hours, then driven by a fierce, burning spirit hunger. Her first visions were the face in the glass, for she was the only companion on her trail. But what grew on the canvas was not foolish pride. It was the warrior's fight to breathe. The iron beast had shattered her bones, but it had also kicked open a hidden door. A door into her own deep mind, her own broken vessel, and at last, into the wild, dream-speaking of agony and truth that would mark her legend. The maiden who dreamed of mending the tribe now began to mend her own soul, one stroke of the colored earth at a time. As Frida of the Kahlo kin lay swallowed by the clay and iron, a vessel warring against itself with every rise of the chest, she began to paint. What was born as a soothing medicine quickly grew into a roaring voice. The painted hides of the Blue Lodge. And that voice was drawn from the deep roots, fierce in its truth, and often terrifying to behold, which was truly its very purpose. Frida did not paint gentle blossoms or quiet rolling valleys. She painted the fire of her wounds, the tearing of her own flesh, the weeping of her heart, and the breaking of her spirit. Her first painted visions were her own face, not out of foolish pride, but because, as she sang to the winds, "I paint myself for I walk the trail alone so often, and because I am the landscape I know best." Her early carvings of the brush were small, painted on flattened tin or cedar bark, born of the old southern prayer boards, sacred skins meant to share tales of deep sorrow and the spirit's healing. Frida turned this sacred chant inward. Her own vessel became the painted hide. Her heavy heart became the central fire. She painted her spirit as torn in two, as pierced by arrows, as weeping life water. In one vision, she is struck through by iron thorns like a brave tied to the offering pole. In another, she drifts over a dead canyon, bound to a crumbling stone pillar, a painted truth of her shattered tree of bone. She painted herself shedding tears, broken to pieces, her head taken and stripped of skins, yet never yielding, always staring back like the wolf. Her agony was not washed in sweet water. She painted the dark rot of her wounds with fierce grace, warrior's pride, and even the trickster's laugh. Every painted hide was a taking back of her flesh, her path, and her naming word as a daughter in a camp that endlessly tried to cage her spirit. But Frida was not simply singing her own tale. She was carving a new path of seeing the truth, one that wove together the Southern tribe's colors, the dream walker's visions, the healer's deep cuts, and the sacred totems. Her visions became dream walks through the bones of her soul, wrapped in bright earth, the ancestors' ways, and grand legend. By the passing moon, she grew strong enough to walk the earth again. Though with a heavy limp, Frida was no longer the maiden who dreamed of the medicine lodge. She was a vision painter, and her colors were unlike any the elders had ever looked upon. She had taken the darkest shadow that had ever fallen across her path and spun it into the spark of creation. Frida of the Kahlo kin did not merely paint her bleeding. She made all the tribes look upon it, and in doing so, she turned her agony into a holy dance of the inner spirit. The mammoth and the white bird. In the winter of 1928, still mending, still mixing the colored earth, and holding but 21 summers, Frida met the brave who would become the deepest and most violent storm of her journey, Diego Rivera. He counted 20 more winters than she, already the southern land's most legendary vision painter. Massive in the shoulders and heavy in his step, Diego was a giant of the great wall painters. sung for his vast, fierce rock visions that told the long trail of the southern tribes. Frida had looked upon his tracks before. She honored his strength. But now she hungered for his eyes upon her own skins. She carried her painted woods to him at the great learning lodge, breaking his focus on the high wooden climbing poles, to ask like a flying arrow, "Does my hand hold the fire?" Diego cast a single glance and grumbled, "It does, and I do not speak this merely to weave sweet words." He saw within her a rare eagle, a pure cry, untamed and unbroken by pride, overflowing with wolf's anger, trickster's wit, deep wounds, and shining grace. They sparked a mating bond that was as devouring as a forest fire and as fruitful as the spring rain. Frida sang to the camp once, "I have walked into 2 great traps in my days, one where the iron wagon struck me to the dirt." The second was Diego. They bound their wrists together in 1929, a strange joining of hands to the watching village. Diego, massive as a bear, wandering from the mat, loudly sung by the chiefs. Frida, sharp-fanged, fiercely walking her own path, already leaning on the wooden staff. Her elders called it the binding of a great mammoth to a small white bird. Their fire burned hot, but was ever whipped by wild winds. Diego fed her visions and urged her hands to grow strong with the colored earth. But he was also a straying wolf without end, even tracking into the lodge of Frida's own blood sister, Christina. Frida was struck to the heart, and to strike back, she brought companions of her own to the mat, braves and maidens alike, including whispered nights with the exiled Chief Trotsky and the desert painter O'Keeffe. They cut the wrist bindings in 1939, only to tie the knot again one winter later with new vows. On this trail, Frida would guard her own steps, her own lodge, her own wampum, and her own naming word. Their second sharing of the fire was less about the old ways of the heart, and more about a shared painting of visions, and a deep knowing of each other's shadows. Even through the poisoned arrows and the shattered spirit, Diego stood as an unmoving mountain on Frida's journey. He tested her blade. He made her bleed. But he also placed his faith in her as a vision maker, as a breaker of chains, and as a daughter who could sing a completely new song of the painted hide. Bound together, they brought no quiet breeze, but they were a storm for the ages. The long march north. In the passing winters of the 1930s, Frida followed Diego on a long march to the northern camps of San Francisco, Detroit, and the great iron city of New York, as he painted grand walls for the wealthy chiefs. These moons in the foreign lands brought her eye to eye with the North's roaring iron mills, overflowing wampum, and the cruel greed of the traders, leaving her spirit restless and full of anger at their laws. Frida was a fierce daughter of the southern tribes, a warrior for the shared earth, and a deep lover of the ancient grandfather's ways. The hoarded riches she saw in the Northern Empire, most of all while the great starving moons tore through the bellies of the common people, only dug the pit of her disgust deeper. In message scrolls sent back to her valley, she laughed at the tribe's worship of shiny stones and their endless hunger to look like eagles while acting like crows. She hungered for the dust, the bright paints, and the wild, clashing spirit of the southern lands. While Diego painted giant rock visions on the walls of the iron lodges, Frida began to paint smaller, silent uprisings, deeply hidden truths pressed upon tin and woven cloth. Her voice grew hard as flint, sharp, dream-walking, heavy with tears, and close to the bone. It was during these freezing moons that she birthed some of her most legendary visions of her own face. Frida did not merely paint her reflection to boast of her feathers. She painted her face to keep her breath. Her very soul became her hunting ground. With her vessel ever burning from the great crushing, the many cuts of the bone healers, and a little one lost to the spirits in Detroit, She turned her eyes back to the dark cave within. Her painted hides showed her weeping blood, scattered in pieces, stripped naked to the wind. Yet her face was always still as a frozen lake, looking straight like the hawk, never begging for pity. One of her most haunting cries, the Henry Ford Healing Lodge, shows her resting on a white mat, shedding tears, ringed by drifting totems of sorrow. An unborn spirit, a crawling shell creature, cold iron tools, a shattered hip bone. It was an open wound, bare to the eye, and heavy with the weeping of the ancestors, a woven skin that dripped with the raw truth. Walking again in the southern lands, Frida plunged her hands deep into the uprisings of the common braves. She and Diego opened their lodge to the hunted Chief Trotsky while he hid from the assassins of the snowlands. Frida wrapped herself in the Tehuana skirts, the ancient woven skins of the grandmothers, not merely for beauty, but as a war cry of her blood and her beliefs. Her colored earth was never severed from her sacred vows. Her naming word, her flesh, and her war chants were all braided together in her painted visions. While Diego was painting giant walls singing of the warpath, Frida painted the blood spilled on the dirt, the flesh torn to pieces, the mind blazing like a brush fire, and the inner spirit always staring back. In wandering the foreign trails and fighting the deep rot, she became not solely a singer of wounds, but a vision maker of the unbending spine. The return to the sacred roots. When Frida of the Kahlo kin crossed back to the southern suns in the late winters of the 1930s, she was no longer merely the mate of Diego. She had transformed into a new beast entirely, a great storm, a vision weaver whose colors glowed with naked truth, dream walker signs, and the deep roots of her tribe. Back upon her Mother Earth, she stepped fully into her own moccasins. Her blue lodge in Coyoacan blossomed into a sacred camp of bright paints and warring winds. Blinding blue timbers, yellow bindings, ancient stone gods standing in the brush. Little tree climbers and painted birds walking the earth without tethers. The Great Lodge was a breathing branch of Frida's own wild spirit dreams. It was a weaving of the elders' chants and the young wolves' fangs, high grace and raw mud. Here she ringed her fire with the clay pots of the ancient ones, painted prayer tins, village crafts, and the wisdom scrolls of the uprising. She wore the bright, heavy skirts of the Tehuana, braided wild blossoms into her dark hair, and painted her visions wrapped in the sweet smoke of copal resin and the strumming of the string singers on the dirt trails outside. This season marked a roaring fire of new creation. Her painted hides grew more tangled like the deep roots, heavier with spirit signs, and sharper with the war cries of the people. Visions such as the two Fridas laid bare a spirit cut in half. One wrapped in the pale trader's cloth with a weeping heart, the other in the ancient grandmother's skins sitting tall as the mountain. It was Frida's own story carved for the eyes, a painted reflection of deep binding, heavy sorrow, and the ancient blood. In the winter of 1939, she showed her painted hides in the great camp of Paris, where legendary vision weavers like Picasso, Breton, and Kandinsky sang loud praises of her wild, untamed hand. But even among the walkers of the dream world, Frida stood on a higher peak alone. When the chief, André Breton, tried to mark her with their tribe's paint, she shoved his hand away. "They believed I was a chaser of dreams," she sang, "but I was not. I never painted the sleeping visions. I painted my waking trail." She painted the southern lands, not the sweet tale the traders sold, but the bleeding, breathing earth she loved with all her spirit. Her visions beat like a war drum with spirit signs, bones of the dead, hummingbirds, beating hearts, sharp briars, golden maize, and life water. She sang honor to the ancient roots of her hunting grounds, while tearing the mask from the blood spilled in its past and its present. But even as her vision song echoed louder, her physical vessel continued to wither in the wind. The bone carver's knives, deep rots, and the unending fire of pain became the weather of her daily trail. Still, she painted through the storm, propped on her sleeping mat, her chest trapped in iron and leather, her fingers gripping the painter's stick like a spear. Frida had crossed back to the southern suns, not to lay by the fire, but to take back her eagle feathers through colored earth, through the council's wars, and through her brave staring into her own soul. As the moons of the 1940s passed, Frida of the Kahlo kin found her own vessel endlessly turning against her. The great tree of her back was crumbling to dust. Her right leg was forever battling the dark rot. She suffered the bone healer's blades more than 30 times in her walk, often falling under the knife moon after moon. Many seasons she was bound to her mat for long moons, trapped in shells of hard clay or bound by iron pulling ropes that tore her branches apart. But still, she painted the hides. Each stretched skin during these winters became both a long breath out and a fierce war cry. Her visions grew darker, more full of fangs. She painted with an eagle's eye sharpened by the fire, refusing to hide behind tricksters' shadows. In the shattered pillar, she shows her flesh torn down the center, her vessel struck through with iron thorns, a crumbling stone totem standing where her spine should be. Yet her face is still as stone, her eyes never blinking. Agony for Frida was no longer merely a song to sing. It was her shadow brother, her bitter enemy, her spirit guide. Her war cries for the tribe also grew to a roar. She joined the Council of the Red Banner, marched with the uprising braves, carved burning message scrolls, and howled against the greedy kings and their crooked scales. When her withered limbs no longer let her walk the earth, she rode into the war dances on a rolling chair, fiercely holding her painted totems and shouting the chants of the people. In the winter of 1953, Frida was gifted her first great showing in the southern lands, a long-delayed great feast honoring her painted visions. But her vessel was so close to breaking, the medicine men told her she could not travel to the fire. So she walked the path only Frida would walk. She rode in the healer's wagon, carried in upon a carrying mat, and placed in the very center of the great lodge, upon her own sleeping frame. Dressed in the bright feathers of the ancestors, ringed by her own painted hides, she welcomed the chiefs with fire water, loud laughter, and that roaring flame still alive in her eyes. Her final painted visions were both innocent as a cub and terrifying as the winter wolf. In The Red Way Will Heal the Broken, she painted herself wrapped in the iron shell held softly by the giant hands of Marks, casting the heavy yokes of the kings into the dirt. Her last known painted hide was a quiet vision of split watermelons. One sweet red slice bearing the carved words, "Viva la vida, long live the breath of the earth." Even looking into the hollow eyes of the long sleep, she remained unbowed, full of the sun's joy, and fighting for the tribe. Frida of the Kahlo kin's final painted faces were not merely reflections in the water. They were strikes of the war club, painted in blood, but always signed with the breath of tomorrow. On the 13th sun of the summer moon, 1954, at the age of 47 winters, Frida crossed the Great Divide in the very lodge where she first breathed, the Blue House in Coyoacán. The elders' scrolls named a blocking of the heart's breath, but those who sat closest to her fire whispered of a darker path. She had been fighting the sickness, yes, but she was also worn to dust by the agony, by the healer's blades, by the endless war waged against her own flesh. Just a handful of suns before, she had marched in a war dance against the northern shadow spies stealing the lands of Guatemala. Frail and bound to her rolling chair, she demanded to join the warriors, her closed fist thrown high into the sky. The uprising of the people remained the final beating of her drum. Her last carved thought in her wisdom scroll was short but sharp as a flint knife. I pray the crossing is full of joy, and I pray I never walk this trail again. Frida's spirit crossing was held at the Great Palace of Fine Crafts, the southern land's most honored lodge of the makers. Her vessel, wrapped in the crimson blanket of the Red Banner tribe, was guarded by bloodkin, camp brothers, vision weavers, and fierce warriors. Diego Rivera wept until his eyes ran dry. He sang her name as the greatest fire of his whole journey. Even knowing his wandering steps had nearly snapped her branches. But in the winters that followed her crossing over, something like true magic bloomed. Frida of the Kahlo kin refused to fade into the mist. At the start, her naming word was spoken only softly around the painter's fires. Her painted hides were hard to place in a pile, too full of war cries for the dreamwalkers, too wild with visions for the elders of the old ways. But like a slow sunrise, her painted face, her long trail, and her unbroken spine began to beat like a loud drum in the hearts of the people. Through the moons of the 1970s and 1980s, as the shield maidens and wisdom seekers began to sing the lost songs of the women, Frida's roar echoed the loudest. She was no longer merely a mixer of colored earth. She was a grand totem of agony spun into dawn's light, of the daughter's power born from the fight, of the southern blood honored without bowing the head, of walking two paths of love, of the broken body, the wild uprising, and the raw truth. Her hawk's eyes, her single dark brow, her fierce stare, the wild blossoms braided in her hair became a sacred mark. Her blue lodge became a great shrine. Her painted scroll became a holy telling, and her colored hides now hang in the greatest stone temples of the whole earth. Frida had walked many of her sons beneath the heavy shadow of Diego's giant pine. But in the spirit world, she stepped into the center of the sun. She did not simply leave painted skins in the dirt. She left behind a looking glass and challenged the whole tribe to hold our gaze. Not with weeping, not with trembling, but with the burning flame. In this sun, Frida's face watches from all corners of the camp. Woven into modern shirts, painted on the great stone walls, shaped into little figures, drawn into the fast-traveling spirit signs, and held as a holy crest. Her fierce dark brow, her blossom-crowned hair, her piercing stare, all known by the heart at a single glance. But what gives her ghost song its thunder is not just that the people know her painted face. It is that they see the bleeding truth behind the mask. Frida did not strive to be a perfect, uncracked pot. She refused to be trapped in the small wooden cages of the elders. She was not a follower of the beaten trail, and she spat at the thought of it. In a camp that commands all to hide their scars, she gave us the naked earth. Bloody, tangled, blindingly bright, furious, dancing, and wildly clashing truth. She danced for the very things that made her a strange bird. Her withered limb, her love of both braves and maidens, her war cries, her ancient blood, and she wove them into a magic that flew over the mountains and outlasted the turning of the ages. She has grown to be more than a maker of visions. She is a worldwide totem of the unbending spine, the strength of the daughters, the honor of the bloodline, and the painted uprising. For the walkers of two spirits, she is a fearless hawk who shared her fire with both brothers and sisters, living under the open sky in a season when the chiefs demanded only shadows. For the maidens and mothers, She is a loud drumbeat that the heavy spear does not require a man's blessing to hold. For the broken-bodied dreamers, she is the living proof that agony can be the fire that heats the colored earth, not the rain that puts it out. And for the southern lands, she is a daughter brought back to the hearth, wild, steeped in the grandmother's tales, and forever woven into the tribe's very spirit. Her painted hides, once cast aside as too bizarre or too close to her own bleeding heart, are now among the most holy relics of the entire earth. Visions like the two Fridas, the face with the briar necklace and the hummingbird, and the shattered pillar are not merely looked upon. They are felt in the deep roots of the belly by any soul who has ever bled and needed to spin that weeping into a sacred dance. She walked on the very edges of the camp and turned the dark woods into the central fire. She threw her arms around the clashing storms, a warrior for the poor who draped herself in sun metal, a daughter stabbed in the back who opened her heart to love anew, a vessel shattered to pieces holding a spirit that no club could break. And through every bitter winter and burning summer she painted, not solely with bright clays, but with the blood oath of a warrior. Frida of the Kahlo kin never prayed to the gods to become a stone totem. She merely sang the raw truth of her own trail. And by doing so, she sang the true song for countless other wandering spirits who had never seen their own faces looking back from the painted hides before. Now when we look upon her face, we see the brave's heart, we see the blinding dawn, we see the unyielding wall of shields, we see Frida.